Welcome back to another episode of Strong Conversations live at IBS 2025. I am Sam Marcoux, and he is the Vice President of Architecture and Development.
Planning.
I got it wrong right off the bat, ladies and gentlemen. Tommy Jones from Stanley Martin Homes. Tommy, thank you for joining us.
No, I appreciate the invite. This is great.
Now, we met each other. We go way back, right?
Yep.
So I think we first met about 12 hours ago.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's been a long relationship for sure.
Yes, it's a very solid relationship built on a good foundation of trust and seafood.
Yeah, and maybe a beverage.
Maybe a beverage or two. That's true. There was a little bit of that going on, but
Yes.
As they do, these relationships blossom, and here we are the next day.
Right.
So we had dinner last night at the Venetian. Fantastic. Where were we? Milo's, I think.
Milo's, yeah.
Fantastic food, fantastic conversation, and we have now turned that conversation into a strong conversation.
Sure.
You were here, and the best part about you being on the show is that my good friend and your good friend Andy Vyers was supposed to be here right now, but I'd rather talk to you than him. So we kicked him out of the studio, and we're here talking to you now.
Yeah, and he's quite upset over it. So that's great. Our plan worked.
He's pulling his hair out as we speak.
Yes, that's right. The hair he didn't have.
So, thank you for being here.
Sure.
So it's day one of IBS.
Okay.
You were just talking. You were walking around. You're getting started. You're talking to people. How has the Morton treated you so far?
It's been great so far. These shows kind of go fluid sometimes.
Yeah.
You start out with a good plan, have meetings set up. You hit a few meetings, but then as you walk through the show, you end up running into acquaintances and colleagues that maybe you hadn't seen in a while.
Yeah.
And you find yourself getting caught up not only in personal life, but business life. And then it sparks into more of a business conversation, as I was explaining earlier. And then you get to see where it goes from there.
Yeah.
And then just kind of re-network, reconnect with people you hadn't seen in a while.
So when you come to a show like this, like you said, you plan things out, but what's your overall goal? Is it to just kind of reconnect and network again, or do you have a game plan as to what you're doing and why?
Well, through the years, my goals have changed, right? Because my roles have changed
Yeah.
in some of the places I've been. So in the past, I was doing national accounts and procurement and purchasing. And so obviously I would come in and I would be meeting with trade partners and folks of like trying to just, find out and negotiate the deals, right?
Yeah.
Find out what they want to talk about, what they want to do, what kind of opportunities. Maybe we had challenges in those agreements. Maybe we had challenges with those trade partners. But as my role shifted back into architecture, I come and I meet with folks like your team here with Simpson, talk about what we're doing with you guys and where we're having some pain points and pitfalls. And it's just that FaceTime, right? And then you're meeting with other folks, maybe other technology vendors and suppliers, and trying to find out what they're doing. Maybe they've been calling and they want to talk to you a little bit and show you what they can do. So it's really just about setting those meetings up, and then in the open time, just making sure that you've got time to kind of walk around and investigate things you didn't know.
Yeah.
Right?
So let's talk about technology, because you brought that up.
Yeah.
Stanley Martin, I mean, you guys are sort of like the tip of the spear when it comes to technology in home building.
Sure.
Like, this is all the rage right now. We're talking softwares, we're talking different technologies to make things more efficient. We've talked to a lot of builders, a lot of people in this industry, and they're here for that very reason. They're trying to figure out how to build the box faster without losing any quality, more efficient, right?
Yeah.
You guys are sort of leading that effort from the builder side of things. When did this whole start? Like, when did you say this is the future? We see it. We have the vision. We got to go, not just see it, we got to go do it. How long ago did that start for you guys?
For Stanley Martin, it started this summer. It'd be 3 years.
Yeah.
For me, it started back in 2007, 2008, when I was with another home builder, and we started kind of piloting Revit and kind of getting into the BIM world, if you will.
Yeah.
And what that did for us is, to try to expedite your turn time, right? Your cycle time for architectural construction documentation. But it really wasn't there, right? The buy-in wasn't there, the meat wasn't there, and we didn't have team members that were trained up, right? So going into Stanley Martin and what we're doing, what we started 3 years ago, is when I took over the architecture and planning department, it was one of these ideas of, well, what's going to set us apart, but where are we going to gain traction with cycle time?
Yeah.
How can we produce plans quicker? But then we have a phrase within our company with several groups of us saying, think beyond your desk, right? So what can we do in architecture that's going to help other parts of the business?
I love that.
And, when you start thinking about how architecture ties into estimating. So now what can we do on the architecture side to be able to produce any data for estimating?
Yeah.
Save them some time. And then how does that help estimating save purchasing time? And then at the end of the day, does it help us streamline our process? And so really from a technology side, that's where we started. It'll be 3 years this summer. We all met in Tampa and took off from there.
And it takes the team buy-in, right? Everyone has to be pulling in the same direction in order for this to even work.
Correct.
Right. So you guys collectively said, this is what we're doing, and we're going to commit to it. And we're going to have some pain points. We're going to have some stumbling blocks. We're going to learn. But we're going to stick to it, and we're going to figure this out.
Right.
Because you're like one of those pioneers when it comes to Revit in this industry and converting everything into that model. I mean, what was that like for? I mean, were you excited? Was it like, I don't want to do this, but I have to? Take me through that.
No, in my role and my history with Stanley Martin, my experience with them is I've been there 5 years now. I get autonomy, right, to help make decisions and kind of lead and guide over the department I lead. And so that's a great thing about our culture and our company is you're given that opportunity. And I've had history with BIM and Revit, and obviously history with the guys here at Simpson on the technology side. And it was one of these things where it just made sense to say, hey, I want to pioneer this, and I want to get into Revit, and I want to see it, how it works. And I went after and hired a guy from my past 20 years ago down in Tampa, Florida, Rich Colon, who is probably, if not the best, one of the best BIM managers, knows everything inside and out from CAD and Revit, and hired him to come on with us and then just lead us, right? Develop it, get us connected, lead us in the right direction. And we started converting. And 2 weeks into converting plans, we were told, don't want to convert plans. We want to develop all new product. So now anything new we're putting in this system, right? All the old stuff we still have to manage in our old system.
See, now you got two different systems that you're going to have to manage there. That's a different ball of wax altogether.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. And our team is all AutoCAD based, right? ACA based. They're not Revit based. And so we had to go through all the training, which we went to McKinney and we trained with your teams in McKinney. And, obviously back in our corporate offices and our other offices around the country, and got people trained up so we could do some of the work in-house. But we also partnered with outside consultants, and we took them with us on the ride. So we have a major consultant down in Tampa, Florida that we took with us. We have your technology side, and we all came together. So it wasn't just buy-in from Stanley Martin and our team inside house. It was also getting buy-in from our major consultant groups, engineering and so forth, that says, we're moving this way.
Yeah.
Do you want to go with us? If so, then let's go. If not, then we got to find partners who do.
Yeah, we'll see you down the road.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because we needed and knew to move that way. And I just had the vision that, and I'd love to take the credit fully, but I mean, I did have the vision that we're going to do this, but it really took, Rich helping set us up. It took, the Simpson technology team to set us up as well and be able to just bring Stanley Martin into this future and show us how it can work and be more efficient. And, here we are. We probably put our first pen to paper about 2 years ago. We did about a year of development, creating, making the system work, starting to train. And then we started going forward, and we've produced just probably a little over 60, 65 plans in the system inside of, less than 2 years, maybe right around 2 year mark.
All right.
And we're continuing to do more. All of our new stuff does. So it's been good to see how we've been able to transcend what was done of old. I live by the adage that, because we've always done it that way is not a viable reason or excuse.
It's interesting in this industry too, because the tried and true way, advancements in construction and in home building, they're there. But again, it takes everyone in that organization, everyone in that team to say, we're going to do this and we know we're going to learn along the way. But the tried and true of pounding a nail is still going to be there. So you have a lot of that just tribal knowledge from 150 years ago that's just been passed on and passed on. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it sort of thing. But there is a better way to do it. And you're seeing this huge spike because of all the information available to us and how we can get it so much faster, and AI and everything that's going into designing and building homes now, that you're just seeing this transformation in this industry. I'm a hardware guy, and I'm talking software every single day of my life. That's a change, and that's a huge change. Right. And you guys are out in front, so you can actually welcome everybody to the party, as opposed to, hey, we're a little bit late. Can we come join? But that's, like you said, that's having the vision and being out in front and making sure that you recognize that opportunity, capitalize on it, and everybody is better off for it within the organization as well as your customers and everybody downstream.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's so true, right? You got to have buy-in. Everybody on our team and our department at the architectural department, everybody bought in.
Yeah.
We range in generation gap, if you will, or generations of where you grew up and what you learned in. But I've got a 25-year-old son who he only knows Revit.
Yeah.
Out of college and everything else, but yet, he had to get trained in CAD because in college it was all Revit based stuff. And so we just redid job descriptions over the last year or two, and we moved it to be BIM software, as a requirement, because that's what everybody in school's being taught, right? And so eventually, like you said, if you're go back to what you said if you're pounding nails and a hammer and nail and a nail gun and it goes together the same way, and we've had 150 years of knowledge, right?
Yeah.
And there are certain things that still work and they're applicable today. But if we're not evolving in technology, we're not going to make it, right? You will get passed up eventually. And you're going to have other people, whether it be team members wanting to leave because they're advancing into the technology age, right? The younger generations are huge into technology, social medias and phones and all the technology they have. They're looking for that challenge, right? They're looking for that space. And that's just another, to me, it's another adage that when it works and it makes sense, let's just go push the envelope with technology and do it.
You mentioned something there that I wanted to key in on, because we're not only talking about technology and the learning curve, but also you have multiple generations in the workforce now, and you have young professionals that are, I guess, what, Gen Z now,
right?
Millennials. You got like 4 or 5 different, probably about 4 generations working together right now. And people are working longer. People are staying, employed for much longer. It's one thing to say, well, I got to learn this new system because this is where it's going. It's a whole other thing to then be able to communicate with your peers, people on your team, and you may be 40 years difference in age. How does that work for you guys? Because I know how I have to do it. There are certain people I have to communicate certain ways, whether it's phone calls. Some people respond to texts. Some want to do. I have one guy who likes a fax. He'll fax me a note. I'm like, I only have a fax machine for you.
Right.
So how are you? How did you guys manage that, or how are you?
Well, it's exactly what you said, right? I mean, you have to learn the personality of your team.
Yeah.
With anybody outside your team or anything. And I've got folks that, like you said, we range in age. I'd hate to even think about what the age gap is on my team. But I'm guessing we go from, early 20s, mid 20s to, close to 60, right?
Wow.
And I don't know, all of the team members what they prefer, but the ones I intermingle with, my direct reports, folks that I'm with the team on all the time. I mean, some of them are text people, some of them are. I mean, I just had a meeting with a project manager a couple of weeks ago, and she sits literally 10 feet away from one of her direct reports. And I'd asked a question about how they are doing, and she goes, "Well, we're doing great. Things are fine. Things are moving along." I'm like, "Well, do you ever talk to her?" She's like, "Not really." I'm like,
she's right there.
She sits 10 feet from you, like right there. How are you not? And she said, well, she just she's got her headphones on. She's in a zone, and she would just rather me send her a Teams message, and she gets it, and she just keeps going. And, at first I was like, I mean, let's be personal. We're in the office, say hello, check in on them, whatever. But, if it works and that's what you learn from somebody, then by all means, I mean, if somebody wants to go sit in a dark closet because they don't like the lights on and they can be more efficient, then that's what I want to provide for them. And it's weird. I mean, it's weird, but yet at the same time, it's refreshing.
It's weird for us, right? Like my daughters, they'll all be on their phones and they'll be texting. Oh, who are you texting? Oh, I'm texting Avery. Well, she's on the couch with you. Why don't you just talk to her? We don't want to do that. We want to text.
Right.
It's just a different way of communicating. It's not wrong. It's just
no, it's not wrong. Right.
It's just the way it is. We're talking about, technology when it comes to software. I guess we have to embrace it in terms of communication as well. Speaking of communications, this is the Strong Conversations podcast. I'm sitting with Tommy Jones from Stanley Martin Homes. I guess I got a couple other questions for you. So how did you get started in this industry?
No, I don't think we have enough time for that one. It goes back a long way, but I always grew up as a kid building with Legos.
Yeah.
And I tell the story a couple of different ways, but I was building Legos and I was, 10 years old or something. And I started building cities out of the Legos, or I'd build, I'd lay out all the streets and then I'd start building buildings, and nothing matched. And I had no idea what I was recognizing too, but it just eventually I kind of started thinking I wanted to go into architecture, and I liked the idea of design and do that kind of thing. And so after playing around with finance and business for a semester or two, I decided that wasn't the thing for me, and I switched to architecture and graduated college and with a degree in architecture, and got my first job before I graduated, which was good.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting story, but I've done it ever since. Went from being a drafter to all the way now being a vice president of a whole department.
So you've run the whole gamut there.
Yeah.
Where did you go to school? Can I ask?
Yeah, so I went to a small school in Tennessee, in
Okay.
Memphis, after going to a school in Louisiana. I'm from Louisiana, so I went to a small school there, and then just transferred after a semester and went back to Tennessee.
Whereabouts in Louisiana are you from?
Shreveport.
Shreveport.
Yeah. So.
You look like a Shreveport man.
Well, that's great. I don't sound like a New Orleans guy, so that's good. So it gives it away.
I was thinking Shreveport. I was in my mind. I was going Shreveport, and then you said Shreveport. Now I feel good about it.
Yeah, I grew up moving a lot.
Yeah.
And even as my adult life, I've moved a lot. All over the country, and it's just really been the profession, right? It's been what's taken me from place to place to get me where I am now.
Do you think that experience of moving a lot helped the mindset of being adaptable and maybe looking at a new technology and saying that could help us?
Absolutely, because you don't know what you don't know sometimes, right? And so when I left Tennessee and moved to Denver, my first time, I went to work for a firm out there, and didn't last long. We just had different personalities, and that happens. But I ended up finding myself working for a structural engineer.
Huh.
Well, in Tennessee, you don't engineer anything, right? So out in Denver, Colorado, you do. And so now I'm learning about engineering. I'm learning about what the plans look like. I'm running the office. I'm getting stuff done. So you have to adapt, right? And you adapt to your surroundings. You adapt to your circumstances. And it went from engineering to back into architecture and so forth. But it makes you be able to look at things with a clearer mind sometimes, and maybe a more open mind.
Right.
And I can be very closed-minded sometimes about, no, this is how we need to do it. Why did we change and do it this way? But, at the end of the day, it's not wrong. Like you mentioned with texting and communicating, right? It's just some different way. So you have to be open about it and open to receiving it, as well. Not just trying to have the vision to guide it, but you got to be open to receive it. Back to the generational gap, right? We've got generations, 2 or 3 generations on the team. Well, that younger generation, we can learn something from, in our generation folks, right? We can learn from maybe an idea they have, or maybe a thought they have, or it might be communicating, right? But we can learn, oh, that's a different way to look at that, or that's a different way to think about it. And it all happens to be with the fact that I didn't stay in one place as far as city for 30 years.
Yeah.
And I've gotten the opportunity. And there's a lot of folks that can say, man, I heard somebody out here on the floor saying they've been with Simpson 24 years. I think it was Jeremy.
Yeah.
Talking about he'd been with Simpson 24 years. I'm like, man, that seems like a nice thing.
Right.
And then for me, I'm just a knowledge hound. And so for me, it was like I embraced the fact that I got to move around. Now, it's hard on the kids. It's hard on family, that kind of thing. But at the end of the day, it's been a blessing for me and for my career, and it's panned out. But like you said, it makes you adaptable.
Yeah, I think it has to. I mean, it's just you're in that mindset. You've had the experience of we're changing, right? And everything that goes into moving and moving around. So when it comes to those business decisions, having that mindset of, well, let's take a look. Maybe we can change. Maybe we should change. Things of that nature. Now, we talked a lot about communications.
Yeah.
One way is the written word, and a little birdie, well, a medium-sized birdie, a Jack Grant bird, told me that you are an author, a published author.
Mm-hmm.
And you pointed out to me right before we went on the air that you're a 2-time published author.
Yes.
That is, well, first of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
I've always wanted to write a book. I don't know what I would write it about, but that whole process just seems so daunting and just so time consuming. And I feel like even if I were to ever start, if I did have something to write about, I don't know that I'd ever get to the finish line. So I'd love to know, what were your books about, and how was that whole process for you to write them?
Great question. Both of them were easy to write. When I say easy, the process was easy.
Okay.
The content in one of them was super hard for me, and I'll get into that. But the process was, what story are you telling? What's the purpose of the book, right? And so it was easy. The first book is a inspirational book that tells a story about my son that'll be 29 in June. He suffered a stroke at the age of 9, and disrupted our whole family, our lives. It's been something that he's about to have his 20th anniversary with that. And so I decided, while he was still in the hospital, because it's rare. You don't have a kid who is perfectly healthy just fall out with a stroke and now his life's changed.
Yeah.
And so I wrote that story, and it's not a very long book. It's 160, 170 pages. It's pretty short, but I kind of dive in, get to the point, tell the story, and it's really Through My Eyes, which is the title of the book. Since the publisher's gone out of business, so of course it's not in print anymore, but it's called Through a Dad's Eyes. And it was just my vision of seeing what I witnessed, right? And what I saw from the time it happened to how he was recovering to what his future might look like, and just everything in between. And oddly enough, I wrote that book in about 60 days.
Wow.
Yeah. And I had all the content. It was up here. It was, in care page updates we were given to families and so forth. And so I just literally just sat down and just started going about it and typed it all out. Started sharing it with some publishers. That's the part of the process that was daunting. A lot of people said, just self-publish, I'm like, well, I want somebody to publish it for me.
Yeah.
And a group out of Oklahoma picked it up and published it for me. And I had a contract with them. And, what everybody thinks about writing a book is, man, you write a book, you're published, man, you're making a lot of money, or you're, famous, or you're a celebrity. That's not it at all.
No,
right? I mean, you write the book. It was an easy process, hard content. I think it helped me heal from that process of having a son now change, right? And going through that. He was active and all these things. But talked about adaptability earlier, right?
Yeah.
He's had to adapt, right?
Yeah.
He drives with his left foot. Next time you get in the car, try to drive with your left foot, right? And he picked it up, right away and did it, and had to learn how to be right or left-handed. And the kid had to learn. He ties his shoes with one hand. And so when you think about adaptability, so there's an inspiration around that again, learning from the younger group, right?
Yeah.
I see what he does and I'm like, well, I'm not afraid to do it. So I'm going to go do it,
Yeah.
At one point he was doing 10 one-arm pull-ups. I don't know anybody, even fitness people, that can do, that. And so, it's really cool to see that process. But, I wrote the book, wrote the story, sent it to a couple of publishers. I had one hit me up and said, oh, this fits our protocol. This fits what we're looking for. We'd love to, talk to you more. Did a couple of interviews with them. They signed me to publish the book, to the rights to the book. They published it, went through, or back up a minute, went through all the editing process, went through developing and designing the cover page or the cover of the book, to everything in between. They published it, put it out to print, did a couple of book signings, bought some books, that I could hand out to folks or sell to people if I did. Did a couple of public speaking engagements where people could buy the book, which was cool. So that lasted, I guess we rode that. That published in May of 13.
Okay.
Is when it launched. And, it was, probably rode that for 4 or 5 years as far as having that opportunity to share the story. And, and it reached people all over the world, which was inspiring and pretty cool.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. And then the second book came out of the first book.
Oh, really?
The second book was a guy hit me up out of, I think it's Pittsburgh, and it's Motivational Champs is the guy, and super, influential guy with what he does and stories he tells, but he's all about, getting people to write stories. And he hit me up, I guess, in early 16 and said, would you want to be one of 23 authors that are published to be part of this project?
Oh, how cool.
And I said, sure, I'd love to do it. So much different than the first process.
Yeah.
And it was called Go Ask Your Dad. It's still available today. And it was 23 published authors who wrote a chapter or a short story about fatherhood.
Okay.
And so got to write about fatherhood and kind of how I've felt like my father was maybe, early on. And then, of course, how I felt with my boys and so forth, and set that up. And it became a #1 bestseller on Amazon.
Amazing.
And so it's pretty cool.
That is cool.
Different processes for each. And I still am in contact with that guy today. And I've thought about writing a third book. I've got 3 chapters, believe it or not, of a murder mystery.
Oh, wow.
I never read. I hate to read. And so I don't know why I even started down that road, but I'm like, I'm going to try it.
You got to well, you're an architect by trade, so you got that creative brain going.
Maybe that's
what it is.
Yeah.
See, I couldn't write a book about Go Ask Your Dad because my daughter asked me questions that I can't answer. Like, we're in the car and she said, so are we inside or outside? I'm like, I don't know the That's a great question. Are you inside or outside? We're driving in a car. I don't know.
Are you moving or not?
Yeah, exactly. Like, why is the bed cold if the blankets have been on it all day? I don't know the answer to that question.
Right.
I mean, I guess I do, but anyway.
Yeah.
Talking to Tommy Jones from Stanley Martin Homes. Last question for you.
Sure.
Probably the most important question you will get at IBS for the entire week, possibly life-changing. We're in Las Vegas. Lots of casinos. People gamble. You could win $1 million, a chance to win $1 million. You get to pick the game that you're going to go play, a table game, slot machine, some sort of casino gambling, whatever. What's the game you're playing to win that $1 million? If you had to play one game, and why?
Man, that's a tough one. That's a tough question. My game of choice is craps.
Okay.
And I have been relatively successful at it through the years of coming to IBS. I've been coming here for a long time, and especially to Vegas. But it's one of those that it takes money to win it, right?
Yeah.
So, if I got a chance to win $1 million, I'm probably going craps. But
Okay.
I've been to a couple of casino nights over the last year, and one of the things that I've learned is roulette. And so, I might go for roulette, and instead, because right out of the gate, I got 50-50 chance,
Yeah.
right? But there's something about the excitement of craps. And I don't know if you've ever played or people are listening have ever played, but it's encouraging. And I can remember many years ago, I was on the crap table, and the guy next to me, I rolled for about 30 minutes.
Oh, wow.
And the guy next to me just kept winning a ton of money. And I wasn't doing bad, but he was tipping me and giving me money every time he won off of a roll. I mean, I was getting $100, $150, $20, whatever.
Good luck charm?
Yeah, I guess so. And this guy was stacking up chips.
Wow.
The problem is you win big, but then you can lose big.
All
and so,
goes away.
So craps is really maddening in that situation, but it's a lot of fun. The excitement, especially if you get on a table that's full and a lot of camaraderie,
energy.
A lot of energy. Yeah, a lot of energy. It's always fun. I'm not a slot machine guy. I put a penny in and pull it, or hit the button, or put quarters in. I can't do it.
Well, there's a lot that you can do and a lot that you have done. So thank you for being here on the Strong Conversations podcast. And thank you all for listening. Stay tuned. We got more content coming soon. See everybody next time.